I was ready to add Megan Evans's name to the deed, hoping I could trade my entire net worth for her smile. Instead, a single phone call from Dylan Crawford, the one that got away, had her walking out the door. As she left, she complained that I'd made her wear a suit just to sign some papers, making her late to meet Dill. A few days later, I saw her on Instagram. She was with Dylan at a music festival in Miami. My calls went unanswered. My texts were ignored. Her only reply, "You know how it is in Miami, service is terrible everywhere." I had to laugh, thinking back on all these years. The car, the jewelry, the money I'd fronted to keep her parents' business afloat. She took it all while she was still hung up on him. This time, I didn't try to smooth things over. I called a locksmith, and then I went to the bank and closed our joint account. 01, I thought today was going to be one of the most important days of my life. The air conditioning in the title company's office was blasting, but my palms were sweating as I clutched our ticket number. The 1,400 square foot condo was the result of years of grinding. The mortgage was solely in my name, the down payment was every bonus I'd ever saved, and even the decor was done in the warm, neutral palette Megan loved. Today, I was going to add her name to the deed. She sat next to me in a tailored blazer and skirt, her makeup flawless. I'd specifically asked her to dress up, thinking we'd take a picture to commemorate the moment. But she'd been frowning since we walked in, complaining about the crowds and the stuffy air. "It'll be over in a minute," I said, trying to soothe her. 10 minutes before they called our number, her phone rang. The name on the screen flashed, Dylan Crawford. She answered, her voice instantly softening. "Dill, are you there already?" I heard every word. I couldn't hear his reply, but her face lit up with a smile I hadn't seen in a long time. It was effortless, bright, almost girlish. After hanging up, she stood. "I have to go." I was stunned. "They're about to call our number." "Why are you so rigid about everything?" she snapped, her brow furrowed. "Something came up with Dill. I have to go meet him." I looked from the ticket in my hand to the purse she was already slinging over her shoulder. "I thought we were signing for the condo today." Her patience was wearing thin. "The condo's not going anywhere. Can't we do this another day? You're the one who made me dress like this, and now I have to go all the way home to change before I can see anyone. It's such a hassle." She turned and walked toward the exit. I took 2 quick steps to follow her. "Megan." She glanced back, her expression openly impatient. "Are you sure you want to leave?" I asked. She sighed. "Chris, can you stop being so possessive? Bill just got back in the country. He's done so much for me. What's the big deal if I go see him?" Without waiting for an answer, she was gone. The electronic display in the lobby switched to my number. I stood there, frozen, as the clerk called it out 3 times. I didn't move. In that moment, a sudden chill ran through me. Megan and I met in college. Her family was working class. Her dad ran a small business, and her mom had health issues. When we graduated, I landed a job as a business development manager at a local marketing firm. The salary wasn't incredible, but the commission on my projects was good. She was an extrovert who loved being the center of attention. Her social media feed, a carefully curated highlight reel. Me, I was the quiet, diligent type. Over the years we were together, I gave her everything I possibly could. When she said her coworkers all had nice cars, I took out a loan and bought her a sedan that cost over $40,000. When she wanted to start her own business, I fronted her the seed money. When her dad's business hit a rough patch, I used my savings to help them out. She always said, "Once we're married, everything will be better." I believed her. I even thought that as long as she was happy, no amount of hard work was too much. Until today. After that day, she didn't come home. To be clear, the condo was supposed to be our marital home. We've been living there together. I called her. No answer. I texted her. No reply. 3 days later, I was scrolling through Instagram when I saw her new post. The location tag, Miami, Florida. In the photo, she was wearing a flowy sundress, her face splashed with water, grinning from ear to ear. Standing next to her was Dylan Crawford. Dylan. I'd met him a few times. He was, as Megan called him, the one that got away. They were high school friends. He came from a wealthy family, went to college abroad, and came back to start an import-export business. He was always impeccably dressed, spoke with a gentle condescension, and looked at you with a kind of detached politeness. Every time we met, he'd clap me on the shoulder and say, "Hey man, thanks for taking care of Megan." He said it like he was entrusting her to me on someone else's behalf. I'd always just swallowed it. I called Megan. Still no answer. A long time later, a text came through. You know how it is in Miami? Service is terrible everywhere. I stared at the message and laughed out loud. If there was no service, how did she post to Instagram? I scrolled through her feed, one picture after another. The music festival, the food trucks, the beach bonfires. Dylan was in almost every single shot. It hit me then. I wasn't the main character in her life. I was just the one footing the bill. That night, I sat alone in the living room. The half-empty glass of wine she'd left on the coffee table was still there. For the first time, I let myself really think about the past few years. She loved designer bags, so I worked late nights to close deals. She felt embarrassed at parties with friends, so I picked up the tab. She said Dylan was just a friend, and I forced myself to believe it. Every single argument we ever had ended with me being the one to apologize. I was afraid she'd leave. Looking back, I was the only one who was scared. Scared of losing a future I had built entirely in my own head. My phone lit up again. A voice message from her, her tone light and breezy. I might stay here a few more days. Don't overthink it. I didn't reply. That night, I slept soundly, like a string that had been stretched too tight had finally snapped. The next morning, I called a locksmith. I need to change the locks on my condo. Break in, the dispatcher asked. I shook my head, even though she couldn't see me. Just want a new set. The locksmith was quick. As he dismantled the old lock, I stood in the doorway and watched the metal pieces fall one by one. The sound was sharp and clear, like the final note of a ceremony. With the new lock installed, I put the old key in a drawer. That afternoon, I went to the bank. We had opened a joint account to plan for the wedding and manage household finances. I closed it. Are you sure? The teller asked. I nodded. As I signed the form, my hand was perfectly steady. There was no hesitation. 5 days later, she came back. I heard the familiar sound of a rolling suitcase in the hallway. She tried the lock 3 times. Click, click. It wouldn't open. Silence for a few seconds. Then a knock. Chris, are you in there? I sat on the couch, not moving. Her knocking grew more frantic. Why did you change the lock? I walked slowly to the door, but didn't open it. Through the wood, I could hear her breathing. Give me the key. I leaned against the door, my voice flat. I thought you had no service. A beat of silence from the other side. What's that supposed to mean? It means you should go find a signal, I said. As the words left my mouth, I felt nothing. She exploded. Are you a child? Just because I went away for a few days. Dylan is a friend. Can you stop being so insecure? Her voice grew sharper. Open the door. Let's talk about this like adults. I didn't move. I realized, with a strange sense of detachment, that for the first time, her voice held a trace of panic. In the past, I was always the desperate one. Now it was her turn. Chris, stop playing games. I'm not playing, I said through the door. Then open it. First, you need to decide if you're here to pick up your things, or if you're here to stay. The hallway fell completely silent. After a long moment, her voice was much quieter. What do you mean by that? I mean, I've made up my mind, I said. The air felt thick, stagnant. I heard her drag her suitcase toward the elevator. Her footsteps had lost their usual confidence. Standing on my side of the door, I felt a sudden lightness. Not pain, relief. Megan didn't know that I had seen all the little things for years. The chat notifications from Dylan that would flash on her screen. The unconscious smile when she heard his name. The dismissive tone she used when she talked to me. I had just pretended not to see any of it, because I was afraid of losing her. Now, I wasn't afraid anymore. I walked back into the living room and started packing her high-heeled shoes into boxes. I folded the clothes in her closet and stacked them in a corner. This home was something I had bought by myself. From now on, it would be for me alone. The sky outside began to darken. The city lights blinked on, one by one. I sat on the balcony, watching the neon signs of the downtown district flicker to life. A thought surfaced in my mind. If a relationship couldn't give me security, then I would find it somewhere else. Money wouldn't lie to me. Hard work wouldn't betray me. The lock for changed. It was time to change the person, too. That night, I didn't text her again. My phone was surprisingly quiet. For the first time, I found that kind of quiet to be clean. 02 after Megan left. The only sound in the hallway was the dull thud of the elevator doors closing. I went back inside, bolted the door, and put my phone on silent. Less than 10 minutes later, the doorbell rang. She was back. Chris, open the door. I didn't. Her voice, muffled by the door, was laced with anger. Changing the locks is one thing, but you have to give me my stuff. I need to get my things. Make a list, I replied. I'll leave it outside for you. She paused, as if she hadn't expected me to be so cold. What the hell do you want? Think before you speak, I said. She let out a bitter laugh. Fine, you win. The footsteps retreated. I thought she would leave for good, but half an hour later, the front desk security guard called me. He said a woman was causing a scene at the main entrance, blocking residents. I went downstairs. She was standing by the entrance to the building, her suitcase on its side, her face still showing a faint sunburn from Miami. But her eyes looked raw. The moment she saw me, she rushed over. You finally decided to show your face. Not here, I said, looking at her. She pointed a finger at me. Just open the door. I ignored her and turned toward the stairwell. She followed, the sharp clicks of her heels on the concrete steps echoing like a debt collector's pursuit. In the stairwell, her voice dropped to a harsh whisper. Are you insane? I go away for a few days, and you treat our home like a hotel you can just kick me out of? I stopped and turned to face her. It's not that you went to Miami. It's that you didn't say a single word. She was momentarily speechless, then lifted her chin defiantly. I told you I didn't have a signal. I pulled out my phone, opened my call log, and held the bright screen up for her to see. I called you 7 times. You didn't answer once. Her eyes darted away for a second before she scrambled for an excuse. I was having fun. My phone was in my bag. I didn't hear it. I put my phone away. Okay. My one-word response seemed to choke her, fueling her anger. What's that supposed to mean? You're going to act all calm and collected now. I'm not acting, I said. She stepped closer, invading my space. Chris, don't forget how many years we've been together. I was planning on marrying you. I looked straight at her. And when you met up with Dylan, was that also part of your marriage plans? Her face changed instantly. Why do you have to make it sound so ugly? Dylan's my friend. He's helped me. He's been good to me. So what if I went to a festival with him? Have you been good to me? I asked. She opened her mouth to argue, but couldn't come up with a single specific example. The stairwell was quiet for a moment. Suddenly, her tone shifted, softening to the way it used to be. I didn't come back to fight with you. I'm hungry. Let's just go home and talk this out. I didn't budge. The word home, coming from her, sounded like a prop she'd casually picked up. You should get a hotel for the night, I said. She froze. You want me to get a hotel? Your ID is in your purse, I reminded her. And you have money. Her eyes reddened, her voice rising. Do you have to be like this? You were never like this before. I stared back at her. I've never seen you act like this before either. She bit her lip, tears welling up, but she didn't sob. I'd seen these tears many times before. In the past, the sight of them would send me into a panic. I'd rush to comfort her, stuffing all my principles back down. Now I just felt tired. I pulled out my new key. The old one's useless. She looked like she'd been slapped. You really changed it. I did, I said. If you want your things, write a list. I'll pack them and leave them by the door for you. She clenched her jaw. Aren't you afraid I'll leave and never come back? I met her gaze. Haven't you already left many times? Her face paled. She turned to go, then hesitated and looked back. Chris, don't take this too far. I didn't answer. She dragged her suitcase out of the stairwell, the sound of her heels fading into the distance. I went back upstairs, and as the door shut behind me, the only sound was the low hum of the refrigerator. That night, Megan didn't come back up. The streetlights below stayed on all night. I woke up around 2 a.m. to the sound of a car horn and glanced out the window. She was still there, sitting on a bench near the community entrance. She had her jacket wrapped tightly around her, head down, staring at her phone as if waiting for someone. I didn't go down. At 7:30 a.m., I left for work. She was still there. Her eyes were swollen. Her makeup was smeared, and she looked completely worn out. When she saw me, she shot up, her legs a bit stiff. She stumbled, but still managed to rush in front of me. Chris, we need to talk. I glanced at my watch. You have 10 minutes. Seizing the opportunity, the words tumbled out of her. I was up all night thinking, can we just stop this? I know you're angry, and I didn't mean to ignore you. Just open the door, let me take a shower, and we can talk things through. I stepped to the side, avoiding her outstretched hand. You don't need a shower at my place, I said. We can say what we need to say right here. Her face stiffened. You really don't want me to set foot inside? If you go inside, it'll just turn into a drawn-out fight, I said. Here, it's clean. She gritted her teeth, her eyes filled with resentment. Fine. What do you want to say? I opened my banking app and pulled up my transaction history, holding the screen up to her. Over the last few years, to help your parents' business, I transferred money 3 times. It adds up to $24,800. When you started your business and said you were short on inventory costs, I gave you $8,000. The down payment on your car was $5,200, and I've paid the insurance for the last 2 years. I won't bother listing all the expenses for birthdays, anniversaries, and holidays. She stared at the screen, her expression growing darker. Why are you bringing this up? Her voice was shaky. Are you trying to settle accounts with me? I nodded. Yes, I am. She exploded. Are you even a man? You're going to nickel and dime me over our relationship. My tone didn't change. You didn't say that when you were taking the money. You said you wanted to look good in front of your friends, so I made that happen. You said your family was struggling, so I gave you money. You said things would get better, and I believed you. She cut me off. But I was with you. All this time I spent with you, wasn't that an investment too? I looked at her. What did you invest? You couldn't even sit still for 10 minutes at the title company before taking a call and leaving. You disappeared for days while I was looking for you like an idiot. And the first thing you say when you come back isn't an explanation or an apology, but a demand for me to open the door. Her lips trembled and tears started to flow again. She tried to wipe them away, smearing her makeup even more, as if trying to wipe herself back into the person I used to adore. I'm sorry, okay? Her voice softened. I was wrong. I won't do it again. I shook my head. This wasn't a one-time mistake. This is who you've always been. She looked up sharply. So what do you want? You want me to get on my knees and beg? No, her breathing quickened. What do you want? I put my phone away and looked her directly in the eye. I want to break up. The 2 words landed like a lightning strike. She froze. What did you say? I said we're breaking up. I repeated. We're done. Her expression went from blank to furious in a second. Chris, are you crazy? All because of Dylan. It's not because of him, I said. It's because of you. She laughed, a tremor in her voice. And you're pinning this all on me? Like you're completely blameless? You're so controlling, you get upset if I go on a trip, you change the locks, and now you're trying to dump me. I didn't argue. I felt calmer than ever. If you want to see it as me dumping you, then fine. She stared at me as if seeing me for the first time. You're not afraid I'll actually leave? Go, I said. Her face flushed crimson, like an animal backed into a corner. She took a step forward, her voice a low, venomous hiss. Stop pretending. You can't live without me. You've revolved around me for years. You think you could just say it's over? Who are you trying to scare? I met her gaze without flinching. If you walk away, you'll never find anyone as good to you as I was, she said, enunciating every word. Without me, nobody will want you. She'd said that before. In the past, hearing it would make my chest tighten. I'd immediately try to prove my worth. Now it just sounded pathetic. I nodded. All the more reason not to waste your time, then. My response seemed to stun her, her anger giving way to disbelief. Are you serious about this? Yes, I said. She instinctively reached into her purse, as if for a key, only to remember it was useless. Her hand froze mid-air, trembling with awkwardness. She bit her lip. Fine. She threw one last line at me. You'll regret this. No, I won't, I replied. As I said it, I felt nothing at all. She stared at me for a few more seconds, as if waiting for me to run after her. I didn't move. She spun around and stalked off, dragging her suitcase behind her. The wheels clattered against the pavement, a harsh, grating sound. At the edge of the complex, she paused again, as if considering one last look back. She didn't. I stood there and watched her silhouette disappear into the morning light. The security guard cleared his throat nearby. Hey, Chris. Girlfriend trouble? She was out here all night. I nodded. Ex-girlfriend. He didn't ask any more questions. I turned and walked toward my car, my fingers feeling a little stiff. It wasn't sadness. It was like freeing myself from a tangled mess and realizing how much lighter my shoulders felt. Once in the car, I didn't start the engine right away. I scrolled to her name in my contacts, paused for 2 seconds, and hit delete. Further down, I saw Dylan's number. He'd insisted I take it once when he invited me out to dinner, saying it would be good for us to be in touch. I deleted that, too. Outside, people hurried along the sidewalk. I gripped the steering wheel, started the engine, and pulled out of the parking lot. The light at the intersection turned red. As I braked, my mind felt incredibly clear. Her name wasn't on the deed. The joint account was closed. The locks were changed. And this relationship was finally over. 03 by the time I got to the office, I realized my hands were numb from gripping the steering wheel. A colleague greeted me in the elevator. I nodded back, but my mind was already calculating the money I'd sunk into the condo renovation, the wedding budget, the remaining funds in the now-defunct joint account. How much could I pull out? Would it be enough to get my plan off the ground? At 10 a.m., my boss called me into his office. "Chris, you haven't been yourself lately." He slid a contract across the desk. "You've been on this project for 2 months. Yesterday, the client suddenly requested a new point of contact. What's going on?" I looked at the contract. Signing it would mean a decent commission, but I knew that kind of commission was a one-time payout. "Here today, gone tomorrow." "I'm quitting," I said. My boss stared at me for a beat. "Are you joking?" "No." I placed my prepared resignation letter on his desk. "I'll ensure a smooth transition of all my accounts and projects. The company won't be affected." He scrutinized me, trying to gauge my resolve. "Is this about your girlfriend?" he asked, frowning. "Where are you going? Starting your own thing? Where's the capital?" I didn't get into my personal life. "I have the capital," I said. "I'm going into logistics. Last mile fulfillment." My boss leaned back in his chair and sighed. "I can't stop you if you're set on leaving. But just a word of advice. In logistics, the money can come fast, but the pitfalls are deep." "I know," I said. Walking out of his office after signing the papers, I felt a sense of relief. It wasn't excitement, but the grounded feeling that comes from seeing your path clearly. Instead of hitting the cafeteria for lunch, I drove straight to a commercial strip on the north side. A new residential complex had just opened up there. Occupancy was high, but there were still plenty of vacant storefronts, and the rent was cheaper than in the older parts of the city. Most importantly, it had vehicle access and loading zones, perfect for a distribution warehouse. I parked and walked the street, checking out each empty space. There was a convenience store, a pharmacy, a lottery vendor, a bubble tea shop, all businesses catering to the residents. What was missing was a hub for consolidating and delivering packages directly to their doors. I zeroed in on a street-level unit, about 650 square feet, with a back door that opened into an alley, perfect for unloading. A for-rent sign was taped to the window. I called the number. Half an hour later, the landlord arrived. She was a woman in her 40s with a sharp haircut and a no-nonsense way of speaking. "What kind of business?" she asked, sizing me up. "No kitchens, no loud noise." "Logistics," I said. "A fulfillment hub. No retail, no disturbing the peace. It's purely a transit point for goods." Her expression relaxed slightly. "There are all kinds of logistics. I don't want to mess up boxes piling up. The property management will be on my case. I'll install professional shelving and pallets," I assured her. "And I'll have all the required fire safety equipment." Hearing the word fire safety, her demeanor became noticeably more serious. 1 year lease minimum, 2 months security, 3 months rent up front. If you can pay for 6 months at once, I'll give you a discount. I didn't hesitate. I could do 6 months. Her eyes lit up. "You have your ID with you?" I pulled out my wallet. She produced a lease agreement on the spot. I used the hood of my car as a desk, reading every clause carefully and amending 2 sections about subletting and early termination before I signed. "You're thorough," she remarked. I put my copy of the lease away. In business, you can't afford to be careless. After paying the first installment, I stood inside the empty unit. The walls were a bit dingy and the floor was covered in a thick layer of dust, but the layout was a perfect rectangle. I had already mapped it out in my head. 2 rows of shelves along the walls, a wide aisle down the middle, a loading area by the back door, and a sorting station at the front. That evening, I went to see the property manager. His name was Mr. Liu. He had the practiced smile of someone in customer service, but his eyes were sharp. "A fulfillment hub is fine, Mr. Miller," he said, consulting a registry. "But you'll need to sign a fire safety compliance agreement, and your waste disposal fees will be at the commercial rate." I nodded. "That's all fine. One more thing. I'd like to install a motion sensor light outside the back door for safety during nighttime unloading." Mr. Liu looked up. "How frequent will your deliveries be?" "1 truck a day to start, maybe 2 later on," I said. He thought for a moment. as long as it doesn't disturb the residents. No unloading after 10 p.m. Deal, I said. After signing the paperwork, I tried to slide a pack of cigarettes across the desk to him. He pushed it back with a smile. None of that. Just stick to the rules, and we'll be fine. I took back the cigarettes, feeling more confident. A guy like that might be tough, but he was transparent. And transparency is how you build a business that lasts. For the next 3 days, I worked like a manual laborer. I hired a contractor to build the shelves, ordered pallets, bought hand trucks, installed security cameras, and mounted fire extinguishers. I recorded every expense in a notebook down to the last cent. The money I'd pulled out needed to start generating more money, not just make a loud noise as it disappeared. On the 4th day, the first shipment arrived. I stood in the back alley as the truck driver swung open the doors, revealing a solid wall of cardboard boxes. "You sure this little place can handle all this, boss?" the driver asked, a cigarette dangling from his lips. "It can," I said, pulling on a pair of work gloves. "Put the big stuff in the back and the smaller items up front. It'll make sorting easier." He grunted. "Looks like you know what you're doing." I didn't reply, just bent down and started hauling. The sharp edges of the boxes scraped my hands raw. Sweat trickled down my neck, soaking my shirt. Back at my old office job, I wore press shirts and typed on a keyboard, looking successful to the outside world. Now, I was hauling boxes one by one, my shoulders burning with a fiery ache. But I felt a warmth inside, because I knew every box I moved wasn't an emotional purchase for someone's handbag or car. This was my inventory, my assets, my cash flow. At 9 p.m., I stacked the last box on a shelf and leaned against the wall, catching my breath. My phone rang. It was an unknown number. "Is this Chris Miller?" a woman asked, her words quick and direct. "I manage a few bulk buying groups for some local residential communities. I heard you opened a new warehouse on the north side. Can you handle our deliveries?" I latched onto the key detail. "What's the volume?" "We can start with a 3-day trial, about 150 to 200 orders a day," she said. "If you can guarantee timely delivery, I have more communities I can bring you." My palm was still throbbing. "I can do it. Send me the addresses and item types, and I'll map out the routes tonight." She paused. "You're agreeing that quickly? You're not worried you can't handle it?" I smiled to myself. I can handle it. After hanging up, I turned on all the lights in the warehouse and started mapping routes on a whiteboard. Delivery isn't complicated, but the devil is in the details. Which building has access at what times? Which roads are jammed during rush hour? Which communities have difficult security gates? Which guards like to give you a hard time? You had to scout it all in advance. The next morning, I was at the warehouse by 5:30 a.m. The sorting table was piled high with goods. I slapped labels on boxes, double-checking the contents of each one. At 7 a.m. sharp, the first wave of deliveries went out. I hadn't hired a driver yet, so I was doing the runs myself. The trunk of my car was packed to the brim, the corners of boxes filling my rearview mirror. At the first apartment complex, the security guard stopped me. "What are you delivering?" "No vehicles allowed inside." I stopped and handed him a copy of my registration with the property management. "I'm registered with management. This is a commercial delivery vehicle, permitted for 2 entries during the day." The guard glanced at it but didn't budge. "Doesn't matter if you're registered. If you block the road, residents will complain. Who's going to take the blame for that?" I didn't argue. I just parked at the entrance and started unloading. I pushed the hand truck inside, the boxes stacked higher than my chest. The elevator was crowded with people heading to work. Someone frowned. "You're taking up all the space." I nodded. "Sorry about that. I'll take the stairs next time." When the doors opened, I pushed the cart out, turned into the stairwell, and started climbing. 1 floor, 2 floors, 3. My legs felt like they were filled with lead. Sweat dripped from my forehead onto the boxes, nearly smudging the labels. I gritted my teeth and delivered the last package to the 7th floor. I knocked. A young mother holding a baby answered the door. She stared at me, drenched in sweat, a little surprised. "You're delivering all this by yourself?" "Just starting out," I said, setting the package down. "It'll get faster." She pulled out her phone, wanting to tip me for the extra effort. I waved her off. "No need. The service fee is included in the order." She hesitated, then put her phone away. "Well, next time, don't take the stairs," she said quietly. "That's too much." I nodded. "Thanks." Leaving the building, my legs were shaking. I had to grab the railing to steady myself for a moment. My phone rang again. It was the woman from the buying groups. "Mr. Miller, your deliveries are impressively fast," she said, her tone clearly pleased. "A few residents mentioned how polite you were. We have another wave of goods this afternoon. Can you handle another 20 orders?" "Yes," I said. She laughed. "Great. In that case, I'll connect you with more of my communities." By the end of the day, I had made 4 runs. It was almost 11 p.m. when I got back to the warehouse. Even the joints in my fingers ached. I stood in front of the shelves, tallying the day's orders, and realized the money was coming back faster than I had anticipated. Once your cash flow starts moving, it snowballs. On the 3rd day, I hired a temp worker named Matt. He was in his 20s, tall and skinny, but a hard worker. I didn't waste time with small talk. I just laid out the rules. 1 wrong delivery, and you cover 3 times the cost, I told him. It's not a punishment. It's to make you remember that a mistake damages our reputation. Matt nodded. "Got it. And one more thing," I added. "Count the inventory as it arrives before you sign for it. Don't cut corners." He looked up at me. "Boss, did you used to work in logistics?" "Business development," I said. "Now I do this." Matt grinned. "You've got guts." I didn't respond, just handed him a pair of gloves. For the next 2 weeks, I was a machine. During the day, I ran delivery routes. At night, I sourced suppliers. I negotiated prices at wholesale markets, inspected cold storage facilities, haggled over freight costs with drivers, and pushed back on payment cycles with the buying group managers. One potential supplier wanted to push my payment terms to 45 days. I got up and walked out. "My terms are 15 days, I said. "If that doesn't work, I'll find someone else." He gave me a condescending smile. "You're a new operation. Pretty demanding, aren't you?" I looked him in the eye. "I'm demanding because I know my numbers." I walked out and went to the next supplier. I wasn't short on suppliers, but I was short on terms that would allow for a quick turnover. Once the first warehouse was running smoothly, I standardized the entire process. How to arrange the sorting station, how to apply labels, how to load the vehicles, how to plan the routes, how to handle exceptions. I wrote it all down in a manual and posted it on the wall. Matt looked at it, overwhelmed. "Boss, this is like boot camp." "It is boot camp," I said. "You can't scale a business on gut feelings." He didn't argue, just started working faster. 15 days later, our order volume had doubled. The warehouse was getting crowded. I started looking for a new space. This time, I picked a spot closer to 2 larger residential complexes. It was 850 square feet, and the rent was a bit higher, but it would cut my delivery routes by a third. The landlord wanted 3 months security and 3 months rent. I put the deposit down on the spot. "I'll sign for a year," I said, "but you have to guarantee me exclusive use of the back alley access." The landlord squinted. "Is your business really doing that well?" I showed him the inventory reports from my first warehouse. He immediately changed his tune. "All right, you got a deal." 3 months later, my first warehouse was a model of efficiency. The workflow was seamless, my staff was stable, and I started seeking out bigger partners. One afternoon, a reporter from a local news station showed up with a camera crew. Mr. Liu, the property manager, had given me a heads up. "Your place has been generating some buzz. The city wants to feature some new local businesses. I hope you'll cooperate." I didn't refuse. With the camera pointed at my sorting station, I placed boxes on the scale one by one, explaining the process to the reporter, our workflow, our delivery times, how we minimize the losses. "How long have you been doing this?" the reporter asked. 3 months, I said. He looked surprised. "You move fast." I just smiled. The market doesn't wait. After the shoot, the reporter shook my hand. "Your business model is really interesting," he said. "We'll edit this down, but a segment should definitely make it on air." I walked them to the door. My employees were busy moving inventory. Matt, pushing a hand truck out from the back, froze for a second when he saw the camera. "Boss, are you going to be on TV?" he whispered. "Doesn't matter," I said. "Just don't mess up the orders." He scratched his head and grinned. "You got it." That evening, as I sat in my car, my phone screen lit up. It was a text message. From Megan Evans. The message was short, as if she'd either carefully crafted it or just casually tossed it out. "Heard your warehouse was on the news." It was followed by a casual, smiley face emoji. I looked at it for a couple of seconds, then placed my phone face down on the passenger seat. The warehouse lights were still on as I started the engine. The beeping of a reversing truck echoed in the alley. I pulled out onto the main road, my mind already on the next step. Where to open the third warehouse, how to organize the teams, and how to shorten the payment cycles even further. I didn't reply to the text. Her presence was no longer the centerpiece of my life. Zero, for I never replied to Megan's text. It wasn't about holding a grudge or getting revenge. It was just unnecessary. My 3 warehouses were operating at full capacity. The north side location was my established model, the east side warehouse was just ramping up, and I had just signed the lease on a space on the south side that was currently under renovation. I spent my days driving between the 3 locations, the back seat of my car permanently cluttered with product samples and contracts. I'd also expanded my team to 7 people. Matt was now in charge of sorting, and he was even more efficient than before. I personally oversaw the finances, reconciling the accounts every single night. The money was moving, and I knew exactly where every dollar was coming from. One afternoon, as I was leaving the Southside construction site, my phone rang. The name on the screen was familiar. Megan. I stared at it for a moment before answering. Her voice was much calmer than the last time we'd spoken. Do you have a minute? Just tell me what it is. I'd like to see you. I didn't agree immediately. What about? She paused. Let's talk in person. I glanced at the traffic light ahead, running through my schedule in my head. I had a 3 o'clock meeting with a cold chain supplier to negotiate payment terms, and a large shipment was arriving at the warehouse at 5. Half an hour, I said. You pick the place. She named a restaurant. I recognized it. It was the Italian place we used to go to all the time. When I arrived, she was already at a table by the window. She was dressed elegantly in a light-colored trench coat, her hair styled in soft waves, her makeup subtle and clean. She didn't look like the disheveled woman who had been waiting for me outside my building. She stood up when she saw me. You came. I nodded and sat down. A waiter handed me a menu, but I didn't open it. Just a black coffee, please, I said. Her lips tightened slightly. You don't drink lattes anymore? Too sweet. She managed a smile, but it looked strained. Before the food arrived, she began. You've been busy. Yeah. I heard you have 3 warehouses now. I didn't deny it. She traced the rim of her water glass with her finger, as if searching for the right words. Actually, I texted you the other day because I wanted to say congratulations. I looked at her. Thanks. She met my gaze, her eyes filled with a complicated emotion. Chris, you've changed. Everyone changes. She was silent for a few seconds before letting out a soft sigh. I was so immature before. I didn't respond. She continued. I admit, I was wrong to go to Miami. I didn't consider your feelings. And with so many other things, I always assumed you'd just let me have my way, so I never took it seriously. She spoke more slowly than she used to, her tone gentle. I wasn't moved by it. Get to the point, I said. She bit her lip, as if mustering her courage. Can we start over? My coffee arrived. I took a sip, deliberately not answering right away. My silence made her anxious. There was never anything serious between Dylan and me. He's just a friend. Maybe I didn't know how to draw the line before, but I do now. What is it that you know now? I asked. I know who's actually good to me, she said. All these years, you were the one who was always there for me. I studied her expression. She wasn't being flippant or argumentative, but I couldn't see any real conviction in her eyes. It felt more like someone trying to reclaim an option they had lost. Then will you delete him? I asked. She was taken aback. Delete what? His contact information, I said. His number, everything. Her expression shifted. Is that really necessary? There was never anything going on between us. If there was nothing, then deleting him shouldn't be a problem, I countered. She fell silent. Her fingers tightened around her glass. After a few moments, she said quietly, We're adults. We don't need to do something so extreme. I let out a small laugh. Extreme? She quickly tried to backtrack. No, I just mean, we don't have to be so dramatic. If you want me to keep my distance from him, I can. What kind of distance? I asked. If he calls you, will you go? She didn't answer. I leaned back in my chair and looked at her. You came here today because my business is taking off, I said. She looked up sharply. What's that supposed to mean? If I was still in my old job, making a fixed salary, would you be here right now? Her face hardened. Are you suggesting I'm only after your money? You weren't before, I said. But now, I'm not so sure. Her voice rose. That's incredibly unfair. A few other tables glanced in our direction. She caught herself and lowered her voice. I came to you because I've thought things through. And what did you think through? I thought through the fact that we shouldn't have ended like this, she said. After all the years we spent together, don't you have any feelings left? I didn't look away. I do, I said, and that's exactly why I'm not willing to waste them anymore. Her eyes started to well up. Are you being this cold because you found someone else? No. Then why are you acting like this? I put my coffee cup down. Because I'm done being the one who always gives in. She was stunned. Every time we fought, I was the one who apologized first, I said. You got mad, I fixed it. You wanted something, I found a way to get it. You ignore my texts. I made excuses for you. I'm not doing that anymore. She opened her mouth, but she had no rebuttal. You say you see things clearly now, I continued. Then tell me this. That day at the title company, when you walked out, did you think about me for even a second? She looked down. I wasn't thinking about that at the time. Exactly, I said. You weren't. Her shoulders trembled slightly. Can't you just give me one more chance? I gave you plenty of chances, I said. She looked up, a tear finally escaping and rolling down her cheek. That was before. It's different now. What's different? I asked. I know what it feels like to lose you, she said, her voice trembling. These past few months, I haven't been doing well. I didn't ask her why. That wasn't my concern anymore. Everyone has to live with the consequences of their choices, I said. She shot to her feet. So you can just kick me to the curb that easily? It wasn't easy, I said. It was necessary. She stared at me, as if searching my face for a trace of the man I used to be. But all she saw was a man who no longer catered to her. She suddenly sat back down, her voice dropping. Chris, I really am sorry. I watched her, not pressing further. Her tears fell onto the table, one by one. I just thought you would never leave, she said. I thought no matter what I did, you would always be there. I'm not anymore, I said. She looked up, her eyes a mix of defiance and panic. So you're not leaving any room for a second chance? I stood up and grabbed my jacket. We're both doing fine on our own. The words seemed to deflate her. Chris, I took my wallet out and placed a card on the table. This one's on me. She looked at me, her lips parting as if to say something, but no words came out. I walked out of the restaurant without looking back. As I drove away, I glanced in the rearview mirror and saw her still sitting by the window. Her shoulders were slumped, a sight like that used to make my heart ache. Not anymore. My phone vibrated. It was a voice message from Matt. Boss, the shipment for the Southside warehouse just came in. It's 2 pallets, more than we expected. Should I call in extra help? Do it, I replied into my phone. I'll be there tonight. I hung up and pressed the accelerator. The steering wheel felt solid in my hands. Emotional drama drains you. Business doesn't. The city lights blurred past my window. I knew one thing for sure. She had come back, but I had already moved on. 05 the day I met Megan at the restaurant, I drove straight to the Southside warehouse afterward. The place was brightly lit, with 2 newly arrived pallets of cold chain goods on the floor. Matt was directing the crew as they broke them down. Boss, a supplier, said someone from the business district was asking about our payment cycles. Matt said, handing me a clipboard. They didn't sound friendly. I took the clipboard and scanned it. Who was it? Didn't give a name. Just said they were a competitor. I knew what was up. The logistics circle in this city wasn't that big. My 3 new warehouses had already started to cut into someone else's market share. It was no surprise I was on someone's radar. The next morning, I attended a routine coordination meeting in the business district. It was a quarterly check-in between several delivery providers, property managers, and a mall administration to discuss promotions and logistics. The conference room was small, the long table packed on both sides. As soon as I sat down, I saw a familiar face across from me. Dylan Crawford. He was wearing a perfectly tailored suit, his hair impeccably styled, a stack of documents next to him. He saw me and smiled. Mr. Miller. Long time no see. I nodded. Mr. Crawford. The meeting began. The mall's leasing manager outlined the next quarter's promotional events, mentioning a partnership with several delivery companies for a holiday sale. Dylan spoke first. Our company can take the lead as the primary logistics partner, he said with an air of confidence. We have the capital and the warehouse space to ensure a smooth operation during the event. As he spoke, his eyes kept drifting toward me. However, he paused. Some of the newer companies have been expanding too quickly. Their cash flow must be under immense pressure. I would advise them all to choose its partners carefully. Several pairs of eyes turned to me. I didn't respond immediately. After he finished, I spoke. Mr. Crawford is right. You have to calculate your costs when you expand. I pushed a folder across the table. This contains the revenue streams and payment cycles for our 3 warehouses. Our terms are a minimum of 15 days and a maximum of 20. All of our suppliers are under contract. I looked at the mall representatives. For the promotional event, we can operate on a per-order settlement basis, which won't tie up the mall's advance funds. Dylan raised an eyebrow. Quite confident, Mr. Miller. Business is about numbers, I said. After the meeting, he didn't leave. He waited for me in the hallway. Chris, he said, using my first name. I stopped. You've been busy, he said with a smile. 3 warehouses just like that. There was a gap in the market, I replied. He leaned against the wall, lowering his voice. The word on the street isn't great, though. What word? Some say your finances are tight, that you're late on payments to suppliers. He watched me closely. You should be careful. I looked at him. You have good sources, Mr. Crawford. He smiled faintly. It's a small world. You hear things. I didn't say another word and walked away. Back in my car, I wasn't angry. The fact that he was resorting to rumors meant he didn't have a more concrete way to attack me yet. Words couldn't bring my warehouses down. 3 days later, the rumors started to have a real impact. 2 of my suppliers called me on the same day. They said someone had warned them about potential risks and advised them to reduce the volume of goods they supplied to me. No offense, Chris, one of them said, his tone apologetic. We just heard some things, and we're worried about getting paid. I didn't argue. What are your payment terms? 20 days. I'll pay you 5 days early, I said. The supplier was silent for a couple of seconds. In that case, we'll keep the supply chain open. After hanging up, I immediately instructed my finance department to process the payments for both suppliers ahead of schedule. It put a dent in my available cash, but I couldn't afford to let my reputation take a hit. That night, I looked up information on Dylan's company. He owned a trading company specializing in imported foods and consumer goods. On the surface, it looked very successful. I had my finance team dig into public records and also called an old contact, a man named Leo, whom I'd met at the wholesale market years ago. Leo had been in business for over 20 years and had connections everywhere. Crawford's company? Leo chuckled over the phone. Looks good on the outside, but their books are a mess. How so? He chronically delays payments to his suppliers and uses their advance funds to finance other projects. A couple of small factories almost went under recently because he dragged out their payments. Is there proof? I asked. The suppliers would have to provide it themselves, Leo said. But there's a lot of bad blood. I hung up, but didn't make a move. To deal with someone like him, you couldn't let emotions drive you. You had to wait for him to make a mistake. A week later, the opportunity arrived. The mall was planning a massive promotional event and required the primary logistics partner to front some of the money for venue setup and initial marketing. At the planning meeting, Dylan volunteered to cover the advance. The mall manager was clearly leaning toward him. Mr. Crawford has the experience, the manager said. I didn't challenge it, but I offered a piece of advice. The advance payment is a significant amount. The contract terms should be explicit. Dylan shot me a look, a knowing smirk on his face. Don't you worry, Mr. Miller. We know how to handle our business. 2 days before the event, I received a call from an unknown number. Is this Chris Miller? The man on the other end asked, his voice agitated. I'm a supplier for Crawford's company. Are you also working with them all? Yes. He owes me $300,000 and told me he'd pay me after the event. I don't even have enough cash to cover my raw materials right now. I was quiet for a moment. Do you have a contract and account statements? Yes. Hold on to them, I said. And don't try to resolve this privately. He was confused. What do you mean? After the event, go to the mall and inquire about the advance payments fund flow, I said. If the funds were misappropriated, follow the legal procedures. His breathing became ragged on the other end of the line. Are you saying he might have? I'm not saying anything, I interrupted. I'm just advising you to follow the proper channels. I hung up, feeling more certain than ever. Dylan's business practices were incredibly risky. He was commingling the mall's advance with his supplier payments. If his cash flow seized up, the whole thing would collapse. On the day of the event, the mall was packed. My warehouses were a flurry of activity, with trucks coming and going. My delivery team was working nonstop. Dylan's operation looked busy, too. He stood at his promotional booth, chatting and laughing with the mall executives. The day after the event, the problem started. Two suppliers went to the mall's finance department to ask about their payments. When the finance department reviewed the accounts, they discovered that a portion of the advance payment was unaccounted for. The records from Dylan's company didn't add up. The mall's senior management immediately called an emergency meeting. I was asked to attend. The atmosphere in the conference room was tense. The head of finance spread the statements out on the table. "This $300,000 withdrawal has no corresponding invoice," she said. Dylan's face was rigid. "It's being processed," he said. "How long does it take to process?" the mall manager asked, his voice turning cold. Sweat started to bead on Dylan's forehead. I sat there, saying nothing. The two suppliers arrived and laid their contracts and statements on the table. "We've delivered all the goods," one of them said, his voice trembling. "We haven't been paid." The mall manager looked at Dylan. "Explain this." Dylan tried to bluff his way through it. "It was a temporary reallocation of funds. There was a mix-up. I'll handle it." "How will you handle it?" the manager pressed. "Did you use the mall's money?" Dylan didn't answer. The room was so quiet you could hear the air conditioning humming. That's when I spoke. "I suggest we bring in a third-party auditor to review all the transaction records," I said in a calm, steady voice. "A significant amount of money is involved. Everyone needs a clear picture of what happened." Dylan shot a glare at me. "Chris, what are you trying to do?" "Nothing," I said. "Just trying to get clarity. It's better for everyone." The mall manager nodded. "Yes, we'll get an audit." The color drained from Dylan's face. He had accused me of having a tight cash flow, and now his own books were a complete mess. Once the third-party auditors got involved, they uncovered more and more problems. It wasn't just this event. There were signs of misappropriated advance funds from previous collaborations as well. The mall's executives were furious and immediately suspended all contracts with his company. When a meeting ended, Dylan's face was ashen, the top button of his shirt undone. He cornered me in the hallway. "Did you set me up?" I looked at him. "Your accounting is your own problem." He gritted his teeth. "Don't get cocky." "I'm not cocky," I said. "I'm just doing my job." He stared at me for a few more seconds, then turned and walked away. That evening, the mall sent out a mass notification. The role of primary logistics partner for the event would now be handled by my company. My phone started ringing off the hook. My suppliers' attitudes had changed dramatically. "Chris, from now on, you're our priority." I didn't let myself get carried away. I just had my finance team review the new contract terms and pushed to shorten the payment cycles by another 2 days. The warehouse lights stayed on late into the night. Matt ran in from outside. "Boss, I heard Dylan's company got called out." I glanced at him. "Get back to work." He grinned sheepishly and went back to moving boxes. I stood at the sorting station, watching the endless stream of goods flow out. Dylan had tried to dig a hole for me, and he'd fallen into it himself. It wasn't luck. It was his habit of pushing his financial obligations down the road, thinking no one would ever actually check the books. I hadn't pushed him. I had just waited for him to expose his own weaknesses. At 10 p.m., I locked up the warehouse. The street was empty, the streetlights casting long shadows. My phone buzzed. It was Megan. Just one sentence. "Dylan's company is in trouble. Did you know?" I looked at the text, then turned off the screen without replying. I got in my car and started the engine. As I pulled onto the main road, I knew one thing for certain. This wasn't over yet. 06, I didn't reply to Megan's message. The next morning, I got a call from the mall, asking me to come in for another meeting. The tone was even more serious than before. In the conference room, there were 2 new faces, men in sharp suits who didn't look like they were part of the mall staff. A stack of documents lay on the table. The mall manager spoke first. "Mr. Miller, we asked you to come in because Mr. Crawford submitted some additional materials." I looked up. "What kind of materials?" The manager pushed a folder toward me. "He claims that a portion of the event's advance payment was transferred to your company as a logistics subsidy. He's arguing that the accounting discrepancy is due to a misunderstanding in the execution of your mutual contract." I opened the folder. Inside was a copy of contract. My company's name was on it, and a clause stipulated that I would bear a portion of the event's expenses. My name was at the bottom, on the signature line. I studied it for a moment, then closed the folder. "This isn't my contract." One of the men in suits spoke up. "Mr. Crawford has provided a copy of the original and states that he has a record of the wire transfer." "How much was the transfer?" I asked. $150,000. I let out a cold laugh. My company has no record of receiving that money. The mall manager frowned. Are you sure? Positive, I said. I can pull our transaction history right now. On the spot, I had my finance department email over a detailed statement for the last 3 months. The men in the room gathered around the laptop. There was no record of a $150,000 deposit. The man in the suit pressed again. And what about this contract? I opened the folder again. The paper looked standard, but the signature was clearly off. That's not my signature, I said. You can have a handwriting expert verify it. The mall manager's expression darkened. If this is a forgery, then this becomes a much more serious matter. By the end of the meeting, the mall had decided to suspend all dealings with Dylan's company and advised his suppliers to take legal action. I had just walked out of the conference room when my phone rang. It was an unknown number. When I answered, it was Dylan. Chris, you're ruthless. Ruthless? I said calmly. You're the one who forged a contract. His voice was a low, angry hiss. Don't play innocent. You contacted my suppliers behind my back, stirred them up to demand an audit, and now you're trying to walk away clean? Their books had problems. Shouldn't they be audited? I countered. His breathing was heavy on the other end. You think this is enough to destroy me? I'm not trying to destroy you, I said. You're the one who misappropriated funds. There was a brief silence, followed by a cold chuckle. You won't get away with this. Not with that contract. I'll follow the proper legal channels, I said. He hung up. That afternoon, the mall's finance department sent me an official request for all original copies of our contracts for their records. I was prepared. I had scanned and archived every document from the beginning. The physical copies were locked in a cabinet. That evening, I brought the original contracts to the mall. The finance team compared them page by page. This is the one we signed, I said, pointing to a clause. There's no mention of any advance payment being transferred to my company. The man in the suit laid the forged contract next to mine. The clause numbers didn't match up. There were subtle differences in the font and spacing. We'll send this for forensic analysis, he said. The situation escalated quickly. 2 days later, I received a call from the police asking me to come in to give a statement. I drove to the station without a trace of panic. In the interrogation room, an officer placed the forged contract on the table. Do you know Dylan Crawford? I do, I said. We're business competitors. Is this your signature on this contract? No, the officer looked up at me. He alleges that you were a participant in the transfer of funds. Where's his proof? He claims to have chat logs and a verbal agreement. I smiled faintly. Verbal agreements don't hold up. As for chat logs, if they involve my company's finances, I am happy to provide full access to my account statements. The officer studied me for a few moments. You're very calm, because I didn't do it. By the time I left the station, it was dark. There were a few cars parked outside. I immediately spotted Megan. She was standing at the bottom of the steps, looking anxious. When she saw me, she hurried over. You were called in to cooperate with the investigation, I said. Her voice trembled. Dylan's been in there for hours. I glanced toward the entrance. Investigations take time. She grabbed my arm. Was it you? Did you report him? I pulled my arm away. The mall's auditors found the discrepancies. A flash of panic crossed her face. He was just having some cash flow issues. He wasn't trying to defraud anyone. Misappropriating an advance payment is a crime, I said. She bit her lip. What about the contract? He said you two had an agreement. I looked at her. And you believe him? She hesitated, not answering right away. The air grew heavy. I don't know, she finally whispered. I didn't bother explaining further. She suddenly grew desperate. Chris, can you help him? Please? If he's convicted, his life will be ruined. I can't help him, I said. You were business partners once. If you just said something, maybe they'd go easier on him. I won't perjure myself for him, I said calmly. Because I wasn't involved. Her eyes turned red. How did you become so cold? It's about principles, I said. She fell silent. The lights outside the police station were harsh and glaring. Time ticked by. 2 hours later, there was a commotion at the entrance. Dylan was escorted out. He wasn't in handcuffs, but he was flanked by 2 officers. His face was ashen, his hair a mess. He saw me, and his expression was a mixture of hatred and defeat. Megan rushed toward him. Dylan. He glanced at her, then his eyes locked on me. Are you satisfied now? I didn't answer. He was led to a car. As the door closed, he was still staring at me. The car pulled away, its taillights fading into the night. Megan stood there, looking defeated. She turned to me. You really couldn't show him any mercy? There's no mercy in business, I said. She let out a hollow laugh. I always thought he was more capable than you. I didn't respond. Now I see, she continued. He was just reckless. I looked at her. If you had realized that sooner, things might have been different. She looked down. Will you get in trouble for this? No, I said. I didn't sign the contract, and the money never hit my account. She was quiet for a moment. The way he looked at you when he was leaving, it was like he wanted to kill you. That's his problem. The night wind was starting to get cold. She hugged her coat tighter. I never thought it would come to this. In business, you can't mess with the books, I said. She suddenly looked up. If I had never gone to Miami, would things have turned out differently? I looked at her. What's done is done. She didn't say anything else. In the distance, a siren wailed. She stood there for a long time before speaking again, her voice barely a whisper. Chris, I just realized, I don't think I ever really had a grasp on anything. I didn't offer any words of comfort. Some things are pointless to say. My phone vibrated. It was a text from my finance department. Police have reviewed the other party's accounts. Preliminary findings indicate misappropriation of funds. I texted back. Receive. Megan, watch me. Will you have to come back here? If they need me to, I said. She nodded. I'll wait for news. I didn't linger. I turned and walked toward the parking lot. Sitting in my car, I didn't start the engine right away. Outside, the station's lights cast long shadows on the ground. People like Dylan were used to pushing the boundaries. This time, the boundary collapsed. I started the car and drove away from the light. In my rearview mirror, Megan was still standing there. Her figure grew smaller and smaller. I didn't look back. 07. The day the news broke that Dylan was officially under investigation, I was at the Northside warehouse doing inventory. My head of finance handed me the documents. The mall has terminated all their contracts with his company, and several suppliers are preparing to file civil suits. I nodded, flipping to the signature page. And we're completely clear? Completely, she said. The police confirmed the contract was a forgery. I closed the folder. At this point, the matter was more or less settled. The warehouse was filled with the sounds of machinery. Matt was at the sorting station, yelling for someone to move a pallet. I went out the back door and lit a cigarette. I had barely taken a drag when my phone rang. It was Megan. I glanced at the screen, but didn't decline the call. Hello. Her voice was very quiet. Can I see you? I didn't answer right away. What about? It's different this time, she said, pausing. I want to talk to you, seriously. I looked at the busy scene inside the warehouse. 7 o'clock. The coffee shop next to the South Side warehouse. She agreed immediately. I arrived at 7 on the dot. She was already sitting in a corner. This time, she wasn't dressed up. She wore a simple white blouse. Her hair was tied back, and she had almost no makeup on. She looked thinner than before. She stood up when she saw me. Thank you for coming. I sat down. What's on your mind? She clutched her cup, her knuckles white. I know everything about what happened with Dylan. Okay. The police said, he's likely facing prison time, she said, her voice hoarse. He was juggling too many projects, and his finances were a complete disaster. I didn't comment. She took a deep breath. I used to think he was so capable, so well-connected. Now I realize he was just reckless. I looked at her. You didn't ask me here to analyze his downfall. She gave a bitter smile. No. She was silent for a few seconds before continuing. Chris, I've been doing a lot of thinking lately. About what? About us. I didn't say anything. Back then, I just assumed you would always be there, she said. If I threw a tantrum, you would fix it. If I want to see him, you would still be there when I got back. Her voice was very low. I took your kindness for granted. The coffee shop was quiet. She wasn't being overly emotional, but I could hear the restraint in her voice. The day Dylan got into trouble, standing outside the police station, I was suddenly terrified, she said. Not because I was scared for him, but because I was scared that I had absolutely nothing. I watched her. I thought you were the one who said you thought I couldn't live without you. Her eyes reddened. I was wrong. I didn't respond immediately. She looked up at me, her gaze no longer holding its usual defiance. I truly regret it. Regret what? I regret not cherishing you, she said, her voice trembling. I regret treating you like my backup plan. I leaned back in my chair. You didn't think of it as a backup plan at the time. But I know that now, she said. I thought I could have it both ways, and I ended up with nothing. Tears started to fall. She wasn't sobbing like she used to. They just streamed down her face silently. I passed her a napkin. She took it and dabbed her eyes. Living alone these past few months, I've realized how many things you took care of, she said. The rent, the utilities, the car maintenance, even my parents' medical bills. You had it all handled. My voice was flat. That was in the past. She looked up. Can we go back to the past? I met her gaze directly. No, her body tensed. Not even a small chance. No, I said. She seemed to have expected it, but the words still hit her hard. Is it because of Dylan? No, I said. It's because you and I are different people now. She was stunned. What's different? I don't need a relationship to validate my self-worth anymore, I said. And I'm not interested in revolving my life around someone else. Her voice grew urgent. I wouldn't be like that again. I can change. Who would you be changing for? I asked. She opened her mouth, but couldn't find the words. I continued. A relationship isn't a trial-and-error experiment. You tried, it didn't work out, and now you want to come back. But I'm already on a different path. She gripped her cup tightly. Do you think I'm only coming back now because you're successful? What do you think? I said. She was silent for a long time. Maybe that's part of it, she finally admitted. But not all of it. Then what's the other part? I realize that I genuinely care about you, she said. I looked at her, not with sarcasm, but with a detached sort of clarity. Caring is more than just words. She nodded. I know. She suddenly took out her phone. I deleted him. I glanced at the screen. Dylan's contact was indeed gone. That doesn't matter anymore, I said. She looked bewildered. You asked me before if I would delete him. I hesitated then, she said, her voice tight with emotion. I'm not hesitating now, but I'm no longer in that position, I said. The light in her eyes faded. You're really not going to give me any chance at all? No, she let out a small, self-deprecating laugh. You used to be willing to give me anything. I wasn't thinking clearly back then. She looked down, tracing patterns on the table with her finger. My dad asked me yesterday why we broke up. I didn't tell him the truth. What did you say? I said we had personality differences. I didn't comment. She looked up. If I wanted to start over now, not as your girlfriend, but just getting to know each other again, would you still not be willing? There's no point, I said. Her breath hitched. Are you seeing someone else now? No, then why not try? I looked at her. Because I have no interest in going backward. After I said that, she seemed to finally understand. She didn't cry anymore. She just sat there quietly. After a long while, she spoke. What if there's an opportunity for us to work together in the future? We can talk business, I said, but we can't talk about us. She nodded. Okay. Her voice was barely a whisper. I took a business card from my pocket and placed it on the table. This is the address of my new main office. You can contact my assistant for any business inquiries. She stared at the card, her expression complicated. You have an assistant now. It's a business necessity. She put the card in her purse. Thank you for agreeing to see me. I stood up. It's good to have things cleared up. She suddenly called out to me. Chris. I stopped. One day, when you think back on this, will you have any regrets? I didn't have to think for very long. No, she nodded. I understand. I walked out of the coffee shop. The night air was cool. The lights of the South Side warehouse were still on. My employees were busy inside. I stood at the door for a moment, then went in. Matt looked up. Boss, was that your ex? Get back to work, I said. He wisely shut his mouth. I went to my office and put my briefcase on the desk. Outside the window, the city lights glittered. Megan hadn't thrown a tantrum or tried to manipulate me this time. She had genuinely humbled herself. But some things, once they've drifted too far, can never return to their original place. My phone was quiet. I opened my laptop and started processing the next day's orders. The sounds of the warehouse filled the air. Life hadn't stopped. 08 a year later. The North Side warehouse had expanded to 2 floors. The East and South Side locations were running like clockwork, and the newly opened West Loop warehouse was just getting started. I now owned 4 fulfillment centers, my delivery network covering every major residential area in the city. My team had grown from 2 people to over 30. I had a dedicated finance department, separate operations managers for each zone, and distinct logistics chains for cold and ambient goods. At 9 a.m., I was leading our weekly meeting. The whiteboard was covered with this week's order volumes and loss rates for each warehouse. The Southside cold chain loss is up by 0.3%. Why? I asked the zone manager. We had a heat wave last week, and the truck's temperature control fluctuated, he replied. The unit has been replaced. If it happens again next week, it's coming out of your budget, I said. After the meeting, my assistant handed me a folder. Chris, you have the real estate signing today. I checked the time. 2 o'clock. It was the condo I'd had my eye on for a while. The unit right next to my original one. The first condo, the one I had planned to put Megan's name on, was my first ever property purchase. Now I was buying the entire floor to combine them. As the elevator went up, I caught my reflection in the mirrored walls. The suit fit perfectly. My gaze was much steadier than it had been a year ago. The sales agent greeted me with an enthusiastic smile. Mr. Miller, congratulations. Since you're paying in cash, the process will be very quick. Let me see the contract, I said. I read through every clause, missing nothing. When I signed, my hand was steady. Afterward, the agent handed me a copy of the documents. We'll notify you as soon as the new deed is registered. I nodded. The sun was bright when I walked out of the sales office. I drove back to my building and went straight to the management office to handle the handover. The old property manager was gone, replaced by a younger guy. Mr. Miller, so this entire floor will be yours now? He asked, looking at the paperwork. That's right. Are you planning to live in the combined space or use it as an office? Live in it. He nodded, his tone becoming more respectful. Just let us know in advance when you're ready to file the renovation plans. I agreed. As I was leaving the office, the elevator doors opened. Megan was standing inside. She froze. What are you doing here? I held up the folder in my hand. Closing on a property. Her eyes fell to the logo on the folder. You bought another one? Mitchum. She was silent for a few seconds. Is it on the same floor we used to look at? The one next door. The color drained from her face slightly. You actually bought it. I did. The elevator was quiet. I'm living on the east side now, she said softly. Okay. She looked up at me. You've done very well for yourself this past year. It's been all right. She gave a bitter smile. I've driven by your warehouses a few times. I never went in. There would be no reason to. The elevator reached the ground floor. She didn't move to get out right away. Dylan's been sentenced, she said. His company was dissolved, and his family was hit hard by it all. That's his business, I said. She nodded. I'm working as an admin at a small company now. The pay isn't great. I didn't comment. She looked at me. You said that day that we could talk business. I did. If an opportunity ever comes up, I'll contact your assistant. Okay. She paused. Chris. I looked at her. Do you not blame me at all anymore? There's nothing to blame, I said. Her expression was complicated. I was so greedy back then. I didn't reply. Someone was waiting to get on the elevator. She stepped aside to let them pass. I walked out without stopping. I heard her say one word behind me, almost a whisper. Congratulations. I didn't turn back. In my car, I placed a folder on the passenger seat. My phone rang. It was my assistant. Chris, a major supermarket chain, wants to discuss a long-term partnership. Can you make time for a meeting tomorrow? Schedule it for the morning, I said, and have the operations team prepare a proposal. I hung up and started the engine. The car pulled out of the complex. As I drove past my original condo, I didn't even glance up. So much had changed in a year. More warehouses, a more stable client base, a more mature supply chain. I had reinvested a portion of the profits into upgrading our cold chain technology and had established our own fleet of delivery vehicles. I used to drive the routes myself. Now, a team of drivers handled their designated zones. Once a week, I would visit each warehouse to conduct spot checks and review the books. The processes had to be clean, the accounting pristine. The incident with Dylan had made me even more cautious. The bigger the business gets, the clearer your principles have to be. That afternoon, I returned to our new headquarters. We occupied an entire floor of a commercial office tower. The floor-to-ceiling windows overlooked the city's main thoroughfare. My assistant laid out some files. Chris, the design firm needs you to confirm the style for the new office. Simple and functional, I said. Nothing flashy. He nodded. In the conference room, I negotiated the terms of the partnership with the supermarket representatives. They wanted 30-day payment terms. I refused outright. 20 days is the maximum. The representative pushed back. But our volume will be huge. The larger the volume, the more critical it is to have clear settlement terms. He considered this, then finally nodded. After signing the letter of intent, I stood up and shook his hand. I look forward to working with you. Walking out of the conference room, I checked the time. 5 p.m. I suddenly remembered that a year ago, at this exact time, I was still at the Southside warehouse, hauling boxes. Now, I spent most of my time at a negotiating table, but the sound of the warehouse were still familiar to me. That evening, I drove to the Northside location. The employees were sorting packages. The delivery fleet was lined up neatly by the back door. Matt was now a regional manager. He saw me and handed me a report. "Boss, the order volume is up again this month. Keep the loss rate down," I said. He nodded. "By the way, heard you bought another place?" News travels fast. He grinned. "Everyone's talking about it." "Don't," I said. He immediately sobered up. The warehouse was bright and orderly, a constant flow of goods moving in and out. I stood on the mezzanine, looking down at it all, from a single 650-square-foot storefront to 4 fulfillment centers. Every step had been earned. When I got home that night, I unlocked the door to the new, empty space. The condo was cavernous, awaiting renovation. I stood in the center of what would be the living room, imagining the future layout. This was no longer a home being prepared for someone else. It was just my space. My phone screen lit up. A text from Megan. "Seeing you today, I suddenly realized that what I lost back then wasn't the condo. It was the person." I glanced at it and didn't reply. I put the phone down on a dusty countertop. Outside, the sky had darkened. The city lights stretched out like a string of jewels. I walked to the balcony and slid open the door. The wind blew in. Over the past year, I had learned to set my emotions aside and focus my energy where it mattered. My past relationship had taught me a lesson. My business had given me the answer. The condo was quiet. I turned and closed the door. When a new deed arrived, it would have only one name on it. This time, it wasn't for anyone else. It was for me.